Hollywood star Alec Baldwin will be facing criminal charges for the fatal shooting on the set of the movie Rust. The award-winning actor was holding a gun on set in Santa Fe, New Mexico during rehearsal when the gun went off and killed a crew member. The CBC's Natalie Collada is here with more. So what are you learning this hour, Natalie?
Very much a developing story, Arthi. We do know that the prosecutor from New Mexico said that they are expecting to file charges at the end of this month against Alec Baldwin, as well as the movie's armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. Both, they say, will be charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. This in the fatal shooting death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. Now, Baldwin was on the set of the film Rust back in October 2021 when the pistol he was holding went off. He was pointing it at Hutchins at the time. The shot killed her. It also wounded the director, Joel Souza, though prosecutors have said that no charges will be filed in connection with Souza's injuries. However, we have just received a statement from Baldwin's attorneys. This is the statement they issued. They said this decision distorts Halyna Hutchins's tragic death and represents a terrible miscarriage of justice. Mr. Baldwin had no reason to believe there was a live bullet in the gun or anywhere on the movie set. He relied on the professionals with whom he worked, who assured him the gun did not have live rounds. We will fight these charges and we will win. Now, Gutierrez-Reed's, her lawyers also issued a similar statement. We know that after the shooting, Baldwin had said he had not pulled the trigger, that the gun had misfired, that he was not aware it was loaded. The shooting, as I said, happened in October. Just 2 months later, in December 2021, he said, quote, "I don't know what happened on that set. I don't know how the bullet arrived in that gun. I don't know." That, of course, sentiment similarly we are hearing once again from his lawyers today. Now, prosecutors have said the assistant director of the film, David Hall, had reached a plea deal in the case. Santa Fe prosecutors did release a statement as well, listing manslaughter charges, and then going on to say this is what they wrote. "After a thorough review of the evidence, I've determined that there is sufficient evidence, and that is to lay the charges. On my watch," it continues, "no one is above the law and everyone deserves justice." As we said, these charges have not been filed yet, but they likely will be filed. Baldwin and the armorer could each face 18 months in jail if convicted and a $5,000 fine. We know that this was just the second year on the job for the 24-year-old armorer at the time. She was very new when she was on this job. Last October, Mr. Baldwin and the film's production company had actually reached a settlement with the family of Miss Hutchins. The amount of that settlement was not disclosed, but the wrongful death lawsuit was filed by the cinematographer's husband, alleging violations of industry standards. So we will, of course, watch any fallout of this as, of course, we wait for these charges to be laid at the end of the month. Arthi?
Thank you for this, Natalie.
You're welcome.
And we do, of course, want to stay on the story for you. And for that, we have reached Benjamin Taylor in Phoenix, Arizona. He's a criminal defense lawyer and partner at Taylor and Gomez Law. Benjamin, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
First, I want your immediate reaction to the news that Alec Baldwin and armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed will be charged with all involuntary manslaughter. So how serious is this charge?
I mean, this is a very serious charge. Alec Baldwin can face some time in prison if he goes to trial and gets convicted of this. So right now, for the viewers to understand, involuntary manslaughter is like making a mistake. It's not intentional, but it's still serious because it's still an act of killing. So what they're saying, the prosecutors are saying, is that Alec Baldwin had full control of this weapon. He had full control of this set, and he should have known and had control of it for this weapon to not go off and kill the victim. So this is a very serious charge that Alec Baldwin is facing.
Okay, so then when we look at what has been put forward, we know that statements, as we heard, have been issued on behalf of the 2 individuals who are facing charges now. Of course, one of them is Alec Baldwin, saying that this is a tragic death, and this decision to put put forward charges distorts the tragedy here and is a terrible miscarriage of justice, to the point that you're saying that this was not intentional, and saying here that Alec Baldwin relied on the professionals with whom he worked to assure him that this wasn't a live gun. What role will that play when it comes to how this case rolls out?
Yes, this case goes to the jury. The jury's going to hear from Alec Baldwin if he decides to testify. And his main defense was, hey, this was a mistake. He even said that he didn't even pull the trigger and that he had no idea that the weapon was loaded like this. So that can be a good defense if the jury believes in Alec Baldwin that he didn't pull the trigger or he didn't know that the weapon. However, the prosecutor is going to say, it's your set. You're the main person. The gun was in your hand. And the prosecutor is saying, we have evidence that you actually did pull the trigger. And even if it was an accident, you're still in charge. And even under the law, an accident means involuntary manslaughter, means that you might go to prison for killing somebody.
Do you think also the two cases may play out differently when it comes to the Hollywood star Alec Baldwin and, of course, the armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, who we heard was also somewhat newer?
Yes, all those are defenses, and the prosecutor, a jury, and the judge is going to look at the totality of the circumstances, meaning that your whole history. If Alec Baldwin doesn't have history of doing this in the past, then that can help in the defense. But the prosecutor says, hey, this set was known to have bad shootings. Guns have gone off in the past. That doesn't bode well for Alec Baldwin. So the prosecutor, the judge, the jury, they look at everything, all the facts, and at the end of the day, they'll decide based upon the facts whether prior shootings or not. And did Alec Baldwin intentionally, did he know about this? Was it a mistake? And should he have taken more responsibility to prevent the death of the victim?
What's the likelihood that bail in this case will be an option?
So what happens now is they'll have a hearing coming up in front of the court. So Alec Baldwin will have to appear in front of the judge. And in the United States, the judge decides what the bond or the bail will be. So if the bond is slow, then Alec Baldwin has a chance to write a check and bail himself out of jail, if that. The judge doesn't have to set a bond if the judge doesn't want to. But ultimately, the judge was going to do is tell Alec Baldwin, maybe you can't leave the state, maybe you can't leave the country. And the judge will put rules on Alec Baldwin because sometimes when people are charged with crimes, sometimes they flee the country to avoid charges, avoid a trial. So ultimately, the judge will decide what his bond and bail would be and whether or not Alec Baldwin will be spending the time in jail before trial or be outside of jail before his trial.
You know, we can't really understate how high profile the case is when you talk about a Hollywood actor like Alec Baldwin. I mean, what role will that play in perhaps into his culpability, given the resources that are accessible to him as well in terms of defense? And has there been any real history in a case like this playing out where the actor-producer faces jail time?
Yes, this is a very unique case. And a lot of times jurors who sit on the jury, sometimes they can be starstruck by a famous actor. And a lot of times famous actors and actresses do get the benefit of the doubt and get a pass because jurors are hard to convict somebody they've seen on TV for all their life. For all these years, they've seen Alec Baldwin play different roles. And so some of them might be in love with Alec Baldwin. So that will play a big role, whether or not they can find a fair juror to listen to the evidence, listen to everything, and to judge the facts and the evidence and not be starstruck by Alec Baldwin's celebrity status.
And just finally, I wanted to ask you, and you have touched on this here, but, you know, you're a defense lawyer here. If you're representing Alec Baldwin, what's your main argument here?
My main argument here would be Alec Baldwin has a stellar career. This has never happened to him. This was an accident. It was a bad accident, and we're sorry that the victim was killed, but doesn't mean that Alec Baldwin should go to jail or prison. So if I'm his defense attorney, I'm saying that. I'm saying my client made a mistake, but he's done a lot for the community. He's done a lot for people. He's given people jobs. He's helped make great movies, and this was a mistake, and don't send him to jail for a simple mistake, even though a person did die.
It will be interesting to see how this all plays out. Thank you again for your time today, Benjamin. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Anytime.
Benjamin Taylor is in Phoenix, Arizona. He's a criminal defense lawyer and partner at Taylor & Gomez Law.